The grand chamber stretched far beyond what human eyes could easily see. Crystal walls rose up for kilometers, gleaming under lights that came from sources Alex Carter could not identify. He stood at a small podium, looking out at the 200 alien species that made up the Galactic Council. His hands gripped the edges of the podium tight enough to make his knuckles white. Next to him, Dr. Nicole Brooks adjusted her datapad one more time. The device showed humanity's proposal translated into 15 different alien languages. The humans had spent months preparing this presentation. They had checked every detail, every word, every number. Earth wanted to join the Mutual Defense Alliance, and they had brought every proof they could think of to show they deserved a chance. The speaker of the council was a creature called Vrexthal. He looked like a giant insect, standing over 3 meters tall, with multiple legs and eyes that seemed to look in all directions at once. When he spoke, a small device translated his words into English for the human delegation to understand. "The humans wish to join our alliance," Vrexthal announced to the chamber. His voice carried a tone that the translator rendered as amusement. "A species that has barely left its own star. A species that still fights wars among themselves." Laughter rippled through the chamber. It came from creatures of all shapes and sizes. Some looked like reptiles, others like floating clouds of gas contained in glass spheres, still others like nothing from Earth's imagination. But they all seemed to find something funny about humanity's request. Alex Carter kept his face calm, though anger burned in his chest. He had served as Earth's ambassador for 5 years. He had negotiated with difficult people before. But nothing had prepared him for this level of open mockery. "Humanity has achieved faster than light travel," Carter said, his voice steady and clear. "We have established 17 colonies across 4 star systems. We have united our entire planet under one government for the first time in our history. We have demonstrated that we can grow and learn." More laughter echoed through the massive chamber. A creature that floated in a tank of liquid that smelled like ammonia sent out a telepathic message that everyone could hear. They nearly destroyed their own planet while building their industries. They almost killed themselves with nuclear weapons 3 times in 1 century. "And they want us to trust them?" Dr. Brooks stepped forward, her voice firm despite the hostile atmosphere. "Yes, we made mistakes. Every species makes mistakes. But we learned from them. Our planet is healing. Our people are united. We are not asking you to trust us blindly. We are asking for a chance to prove ourselves." A reptilian alien that looked ancient beyond measure spoke up. His voice was slow and dripped with contempt. "Prove yourselves? What could you possibly offer us? Your technology is primitive. Your ships are nothing but chemical rockets with hyperspace engines attached. Your science is 12,000 years behind even the youngest species in this council." Colonel Kevin Ross stood behind Carter, wearing his military dress uniform. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes burned with barely controlled anger. He had fought in 3 wars before joining the diplomatic service. He knew how to keep his feelings hidden when necessary. Carter took a breath and continued. "We offer our perspective, our creativity, our determination. Humans are good at solving problems in new ways. We adapt quickly. We learn fast. We are asking only for the opportunity to show you what we can do." Vrexthal raised one of his front legs, and the chamber fell silent. "The Council will now vote on humanity's request for admission to the Mutual Defense Alliance." The vote happened quickly. Too quickly. A holographic display showed the results in numbers that were easy to understand. 173 species voted against letting humans join. 0 species voted in favor. 27 species chose not to vote either way. Not a single alien species had spoken up for humanity. But the humiliation was not finished yet. A beetle-like creature named Thesses Par stood up. He represented something called the Draxian hegemony. Perhaps, in another 1,000 years, humans might be ready to join galactic civilization. If your species survives that long, which seems unlikely. Until then, I suggest you focus on not destroying yourselves. That seems to be the main challenge for aggressive species like yours. I Sigan 9. The chamber exploded with laughter again. Even species that had chosen not to vote joined in the mockery. The sound was overwhelming. Hundreds of different types of laughter, from hundreds of different kinds of throats and voice boxes, all united in finding humanity's application amusing. Carter stood perfectly still. His face could have been carved from stone. Next to him, Dr. Brooks blinked rapidly, fighting back tears of frustration and anger. Colonel Ross's hands had curled into fists at his sides, though he kept them behind his back where the aliens could not see. Then Carter did something that surprised everyone, including his own team. He reached down and began gathering his materials. He picked up his datapad, his notes, his presentation files. He placed them carefully in his briefcase and closed it with a soft click. The sound somehow carried through the enormous chamber. He looked at his delegation and gave a single nod. They all began gathering their things as well. "We thank the Council for their time," Carter said quietly. His voice was soft, but it cut through the laughter like a knife through paper. "Humanity will remember this day." Something in his tone made the laughter stop. The aliens looked at each other, confused by the sudden change in atmosphere. The human delegation turned as one and began walking toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the now silent chamber. "Ambassador Carter," Vrexthal called out. Confusion was clear in his voice. "Surely you wish to file a formal protest? To argue your case further? To request a review of the decision?" Carter stopped at the doorway. He did not turn around to face the council. "No, Speaker Vrexthal. We have nothing more to say to this council." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Then the humans walked out, leaving behind a chamber full of aliens who suddenly felt uncomfortable without understanding why. The heavy doors closed behind the human delegation with a sound that seemed far too final. In the silence that followed, some of the council members looked at each other with uncertainty. Others dismissed the feeling and returned to their normal business. After all, what could one primitive species do? They were insignificant, unimportant, not worth worrying about. But a few aliens, those who had studied human history, felt a small chill run through them. They had read about what happened when humans were cornered, when they were insulted, when they were told they could not do something. Humans had a strange habit of proving their critics wrong. The council had laughed at humanity and sent them away. Now the humans were walking away in silence, and somehow, that silence felt more dangerous than any threat could have been. 3 weeks passed after the council rejected humanity's application. Then a message arrived at the Galactic Council headquarters. It was short, professional, and carried a weight that few council members understood at first. Lisa Morgan, Earth's Secretary of State, had signed the message. President Daniel Wright had added his signature below hers. The words were simple and direct. "The human government has reviewed the Council's decision regarding our application to the Mutual Defense Alliance. We accept your judgment that humanity is not ready for membership in galactic civilization. Starting immediately, humanity will withdraw from all non-essential diplomatic contact with Council species. We wish you well." At first, almost no one paid attention. The Kravian Empire's diplomatic office filed the message with thousands of other routine documents. The Zephyrians, those beings of pure energy in crystal containers, dismissed it as hurt feelings from a primitive species. The Tenthari analysts made notes in their reports but marked it as low importance. Vrexthal himself was in the middle of settling a trade dispute between two other species when his assistant brought him the human message. He read it quickly and set it aside. "Typical emotional response from primates," he muttered. "They will come back when they need something from us." But humanity did not come back. The human embassy on the Council's capital station closed within 2 days. Ambassador Carter and his entire staff of 12 diplomats packed their belongings and left on the last human transport ship. They left behind empty offices and no way to contact them. The same thing happened across Council space. Human diplomatic missions in 27 different star systems shut down at the same time. Trade representatives departed. Cultural exchange programs ended. Scientific observers packed up their equipment and went home. The human colonies stopped sending messages. No more requests for technical help. No more applications to license council technology. No more questions about trade agreements or cultural exchange opportunities. Commander Sarah Bennett ran Earth's deep space monitoring network. She reported to General Patricia Mills at military headquarters that all human ships had returned home. Every ship, every station, every outpost that had been in council space was now back inside the 50 light-year radius around Earth that humanity claimed as its own territory. They have all returned, General, Bennett reported. Every single vessel and installation. Just as you ordered. Just as you ordered. Mills studied the holographic star map that showed human space. It looked empty of the markers that had once indicated human presence in council territory. And the security protocols? Active and running. All systems are locked down. All access codes have been changed. All our technology has been secured. 3 months passed. The Galactic Trade Authority started noticing small problems. Certain raw materials were becoming harder to get. Nothing critical at first. Just small disruptions in supply chains. Prices began rising for rare earth elements and some organic compounds. A young economic analyst named Krevshan was the first to see the pattern. He worked for the Yervin species, and his job was to track trade flows. What he found worried him enough to report it to his supervisor. His supervisor dismissed it at first. Statistical noise, random fluctuations, nothing to worry about. But Krevshan was thorough in his work. He dug deeper into the data and discovered something interesting. Humanity had been quiet participants in the galactic economy. But they had been participants. They exported certain minerals from their colony worlds that were used in medical applications. They had developed a way to synthesize organic compounds that was slightly more efficient than the standard council method. They had been providing cheap transport services for small shipments that major corporations found unprofitable. None of these services were critical. None were impossible to replace. But all of them were now gone. And the gaps they left were starting to hurt. What worried Krevshan even more was what humanity had stopped buying. They had been regular customers for advanced computing cores, antimatter containment systems, and medical scanners. These were technologies far beyond what humans could make themselves. They are not buying anything from us anymore, Krevshan reported to his now attentive supervisor. Nothing at all. How is a species so far behind in technology managing without our products? The question went unanswered. Most council members did not even read the reports. Humanity had withdrawn. And if they wanted to isolate themselves, that was their choice. The galaxy was large. The council had more important things to worry about, but in the military intelligence division of the Kravian Empire, a different conversation was happening. Colonel Thexvar reviewed reports from surveillance platforms scattered throughout council space. The human ships have all withdrawn, he told his commanding officer. But something strange happened before they left. We detected unusual activity around their colony worlds. High energy readings that suggest major industrial expansion. Massive amounts of materials being transported. What are they building? His commander asked. Unknown. They changed all their communication codes to new systems we have not broken yet. They have surrounded their planets with sensor nets that interfere with our surveillance equipment. We basically cannot see what is happening in human space. The commander thought about this for a moment. They are upset about our rejection. They are probably fortifying their worlds, preparing to be isolated. Let them. It does not change anything. But Colonel Thexvar was not convinced. He had studied humanity's history. He had read about their wars, their technological progress, their way of solving problems. They were a young species, true. But they learned quickly, sometimes too quickly for comfort. He filed his concerns in a classified report. It would not be read by council leadership for another 6 months. By then, everything would be different. The galactic economy continued to show small strains. Nothing dramatic, just little problems that added up over time. Transport costs increased. Some materials became more expensive. A few minor species that had depended on cheap human transport for their exports now faced economic difficulties. But beneath these surface problems, something else was happening. Something the council could not see, because humanity had gone dark. Dr. Helen Cruz worked as chief economist for the Interstellar Commerce Guild. She was one of the few people who understood what was really happening. She tried to explain it to the guild's board of directors. "It is a cascade effect," she said during a meeting. When humanity withdrew, they left gaps in dozens of supply chains. Other species moved to fill those gaps, which created gaps somewhere else. The problems are spreading. The board members, representing 15 different species, were skeptical. "We are talking about a species that controlled less than 1% of galactic trade," one argued. "How can their absence cause real problems?" Cruz showed them a complex economic model. Because they filled strategic positions. They provided services that big companies found unprofitable, but that small economies needed. Remove those services, and you create bottlenecks in the system. In his office deep beneath the Colorado mountains on Earth, Commander Jake Morrison reviewed intercepted communications from across Council space. He smiled grimly at what he saw. "They are starting to ask questions," he reported to Director Lisa Morgan. "The Council species are beginning to wonder what we are doing." "What are they seeing?" Morgan asked. "Nothing. That is what bothers them. We have gone completely dark. No transmissions they can intercept. No ship movements outside our space. No contact with anyone. It is making them nervous." Morgan nodded with satisfaction. "Good. Let them wonder. Let them worry. We have work to do." Across human space, construction continued at a pace that would have shocked the Council if they could have seen it. New ships were being built in orbital yards, new colonies were being established, new technologies were being developed, and all of it was happening behind the sensor nets that kept Council surveillance blind. The Council had laughed at humanity. They had sent the humans away. Now humanity was gone, working in silence. And that silence was starting to make some aliens very uncomfortable. 1 year had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. The galactic economy was showing clear signs of strain now. What had started as small problems had grown into something larger. Dr. Helen Cruz tried to explain the situation to anyone who would listen. "It is a cascade effect," she told the Interstellar Commerce Guild board again. This time, they were paying attention. When humanity withdrew, they left gaps in dozens of supply chains. Other species tried to fill those gaps, but that created new gaps elsewhere. The disruptions keep spreading. The board members looked worried now. The price of medical-grade rare earth elements had tripled in the past year. Transport costs for small shipments had doubled. Several minor species that had depended on affordable human transport services were now facing serious economic problems. But the economic trouble was just the surface. Something deeper was happening, and it was making people nervous. Commander Jake Morrison sat in a dark room deep under the mountains of Colorado. He was reviewing communications that Earth's intelligence service had intercepted from across Council space. What he saw made him smile, though there was no humor in it. "They are asking questions now," he reported to Director Lisa Morgan during their weekly meeting. "The Council species are wondering what we are doing." "What can they see?" Morgan asked. "Nothing at all. That is what is bothering them. We have gone completely silent. No transmissions they can pick up. No ships leaving our space. No contact with anyone. And it is making them very nervous." The nervousness had good reason behind it. In Kravian military headquarters, General Thexvar had been promoted after his warnings finally got attention. He now stood before the Council's Security Committee, presenting his findings. "Humanity has disappeared," he stated clearly. "Not just withdrawn. Disappeared. We cannot see through their sensor nets. We cannot intercept their communications. We do not know what they are building, but the energy readings we detect suggest industrial activity on a scale that should be impossible for their level of technology." Councillor Vrexthal led the Security Committee. His mandibles clicked as he thought, "Surely you are not suggesting that humanity is a threat?" They were far behind even the youngest species in this council. "Were, Councillor." Past tense. That was a year ago. We do not know what they are now. A Tenthari representative sent out a telepathic message of doubt. They cannot have advanced much in just 1 year. Technology does not progress that fast. It takes centuries for real advancement. General Thexvar showed images captured by long-range surveillance platforms. They showed the outer edge of human space, where sensor nets created a wall of interference around human worlds. These nets did not exist a year ago, Thexvar explained. The technology they use is advanced. It may even match our own capabilities. Where did they get it? How did they build it so quickly across such a large area of space? The committee members looked at each other with uncertainty. The Yervin security advisor spoke up. Perhaps we are worrying too much. They are just defending their borders. A natural response from a species that feels rejected and vulnerable. Nothing more. Maybe, Thexvar agreed. But I recommend we keep watching them closely. Something is happening in human space. We should understand what it is before we decide it is not important. The committee agreed to increase surveillance, but the report was filed with low priority. The council had bigger problems. Border disputes between the Draxian hegemony and the Vornax collective were getting worse. The Zephyrians were having an energy crisis that needed attention. Humanity's silence was strange, but not urgent. In a conference room on Earth Shield 1, an orbital station above Earth, President Daniel Wright met with his cabinet and military leaders. A holographic display showed human space, now filled with new colonies, industrial platforms, and defense stations that had not existed a year ago. Give me a status report, Wright requested. General Patricia Mills stepped forward. Project Autonomy is ahead of schedule. We have successfully copied and improved 63% of the Council technologies we used to import. We now make our own computing cores, antimatter containment systems, and medical scanners. Our production exceeds what we used to buy from them, Secretary of State Lisa Morgan continued. Our silence keeps generating concern among Council species. We have received 47 requests for renewed contact. We have politely declined all of them. Several smaller species have expressed interest in trading with us directly, outside of Council oversight. Admiral Christopher Blake, commander of Earth's Defense Fleet, added his report. The shipyards are running at full capacity. We now have 142 ships capable of faster-than-light travel. That is triple what we had a year ago. The new designs use improved versions of Council technology. Our ships are 37% more efficient than theirs. President Wright nodded slowly. We are not looking for conflict, he reminded everyone. Our goal is simple. We want to make sure humanity never has to beg for a seat at someone else's table again. We will build our own table. What if the Council tries to stop us? Admiral Blake asked. They will not, Wright answered with quiet confidence. Not yet, anyway. We are too far away. Too small to worry about. By the time they realize they should have paid attention, it will be too late. Across Council space, more species were starting to notice humanity's absence. Not the big empires. They were too busy with their own concerns. But the smaller species, the ones on the edges of Council power, were paying attention. A delegation from a minor species called the Rithari sent a message directly to Earth, bypassing the Council entirely. They wanted to discuss trade. They wanted to buy human transport services. They were tired of being ignored by the major Council species and wanted to deal with someone who might treat them as equals. Earth's response was polite but firm. We appreciate your interest. However, we are not currently engaging in diplomatic relations with Council species. If you wish to discuss this further, we suggest you consider whether you truly need Council membership to thrive. The message was clear. Humanity was offering an alternative. Not loudly, not publicly, but quietly. To those who were listening, in the Council chambers, Speaker Vrexthal was dealing with increasing problems. The war between the Draxians and Vornax was getting worse. Economic disruptions were spreading. Smaller species were complaining about being ignored, and through it all, humanity remained silent. Have we heard anything from the humans? he asked his staff during a morning briefing. Nothing, Speaker. They continue to decline all contact. Their space remains closed to our surveillance. We know nothing about what they are doing. Vrex Thal felt something he had not felt in centuries of diplomatic service. Uncertainty. A year ago, he had laughed at humanity's application. He had dismissed them as primitive and insignificant. Now, their silence felt like a presence in the room. A reminder of something he could not quite identify. Keep trying to establish contact, he ordered. I want to know what they are doing. But humanity was not talking. They were working. And in the silence, they were building something that would change the galaxy forever. General Thexvar sat in his office late one night, reviewing the latest reports. The energy signatures from human space had increased again. More construction. More activity. More of whatever they were doing behind their sensor nets. His chief analyst, Vex Nor, brought him a cup of hot liquid that helped Kravian stay alert. Sir, I have been thinking about the humans. Everyone has been thinking about the humans, Thexvar replied. No, sir. I mean really thinking about them. What if we were wrong? What if they were never as primitive as we thought? What if their rapid advancement is not surprising to them at all? Thexvar looked up sharply. What do you mean? Human history shows constant rapid advancement. They went from their first flight to landing on their moon in 66 years. They went from basic computers to artificial intelligence in 50 years. Maybe rapid progress is normal for them. Maybe we just did not understand that. The general sat back in his chair. You are saying we judged them by our standards. We advance slowly. So we assumed all species do. But humans might work differently. Exactly, sir. And if that is true, then we made a serious mistake by rejecting them. We also made a mistake by letting them go off alone to develop, without any oversight. Who knows what they have become in the past year? Thexvar stared at the star chart on his wall. Human space glowed with activity markers that his surveillance platforms could barely detect. Then we need to find out. Before it is too late. But as both Kravians suspected, it was already too late. The time for understanding humanity had passed. Now the galaxy would have to deal with what humanity had become. The war started in a region of space called the Outer Reach. Two powerful species, the Draxian hegemony and the Vornax collective, had been arguing for 2 years about who had rights to mine a cluster of valuable asteroids. The Galactic Council had tried to negotiate peace between them. But diplomacy had failed. It began with a small fight. 3 Draxian patrol ships attacked a Vornax mining station and destroyed it. Thousands of workers died in the explosion. The Vornax responded by attacking a Draxian colony world. They aimed for military targets, but their weapons were not precise enough. Millions of civilians died in the crossfire. Within 1 week, the conflict had grown into a full war. Both sides called on their allies for help. The Kravian Empire supported the Draxians. The Tenthari Federation backed the Vornax. More species picked sides. The Mutual Defense Alliance, which had kept peace for 6,000 years, fell apart. In the council chambers, Speaker Vrex Thal tried to maintain order as different species shouted accusations at each other. The alliance was created to prevent exactly this, he said desperately. We must find a peaceful solution, but peace was not possible anymore. The war spread across space, pulling in more star systems, more species, more ships. Trade routes were blocked. Millions of refugees fled from war zones. Economies struggled under the cost of military operations. 3 months into the war, a Zephyrian representative made a suggestion born from desperation. We need mediators. Someone from outside the conflict. Someone that both sides might trust to be fair. The chamber fell silent as multiple counselors realized the same thing at the same moment. The Yervin delegate spoke first. The humans. Vrex Thal's mandibles clicked in distress. The primitives we rejected? The species that left galactic society? You want us to ask them for help? They have no alliances with either side, the Zephyrian argued. They stayed neutral. They stayed silent. Maybe the Draxians and Vornax would accept their mediation. The council debated for hours. Pride fought against necessity, but in the end, desperation won. The council voted to ask humanity for help in mediating the conflict. Speaker Vrexthal got the job of sending the message, which felt like punishment for his role in rejecting humanity 2 years earlier. The response came 3 days later. It was not from Ambassador Carter, who had retired. Instead, Secretary of State Lisa Morgan herself replied. Her message was polite, brief, and devastating. Humanity appreciates the Council's confidence in asking for our mediation services. However, we must respectfully decline. As the Council clearly stated 2 years ago, we are too young, too violent, and too insignificant to walk among civilized species. We would not want to interfere in matters beyond our ability to understand. We wish you success in resolving your conflict through your own wisdom and experience. The message was read aloud in the council chambers. The silence that followed was heavy enough to feel. Councillor Thes's par of the Draxian hegemony stood up angrily. He was the same one who had mocked humanity's immaturity 2 years before. This is petty revenge. They are letting people die because their feelings were hurt. But the Tenthry representative disagreed. No, they are doing exactly what we told them to do. Staying out of affairs beyond their understanding. We cannot order them to be silent and then complain when they listen to us. The war continued. More people died. The economic damage spread throughout council space. Smaller species that depended on trade routes blocked by the war faced collapse. The alliance that had kept peace for 6 millennia was breaking into pieces. And through all of it, humanity remained silent. In the intelligence center beneath Kravian military headquarters, General Thexvar watched the war with growing worry. But he also watched something else. Human space. The energy signatures from human worlds had grown stronger. New structures were being built in space between their star systems. Massive constructions whose purpose remained unknown. Human ships, now larger and more advanced than before, moved through their territory with increasing confidence. They are preparing for something, Thexvar told his staff. But what? Will they intervene in the war? Will they take advantage of our weakness? His chief analyst Vexnor offered a different view. Maybe they are just doing what they said, focusing on themselves, building their own civilization without us. That does not match the humans I studied, Thexvar said. They are ambitious, they expand. They should be trying to exploit this situation. Perhaps we never really understood them, Vexnor suggested quietly. The war reached its worst point when the Vornax deployed a weapon that broke council laws. It was a genetic plague designed to attack Draxian biology specifically. The plague worked too well. It mutated and spread beyond its intended targets. It threatened to kill not just Draxians, but several other species with similar genetics. Panic filled the council chambers. We need a cure, the Draxian ambassador begged, his voice breaking. Our medical facilities cannot keep up. Millions are dying every day. The Tenthry representative, shocked that the Vornax had used such an illegal weapon, offered their best scientists to help. But the truth became clear quickly. The plague was too advanced, too specifically designed. Council medical technology could not develop a cure fast enough. The Yervin medical director was the first to speak the thought everyone was avoiding. The humans. Their medical research was always creative. Their approach to genetic problems was different from ours but effective. Maybe they could help. No, Vrexthal said firmly. We will not beg the humans. We will solve this ourselves. But as the death count climbed past 10 million, then 20 million, then 50 million, pride became something the council could no longer afford. The message sent to Earth was different from the mediation request. This was a plea for humanitarian assistance. It was signed by representatives of 12 different species, including both Draxians and Vornax. The genetic plague had spread beyond the war's original enemies, and people were dying by the millions. President Daniel Wright read the message in Earth's Situation Room. His advisors stood around him. The holographic display showed the plague spreading across council space in red zones that grew larger by the hour. They are asking us to save them, Admiral Christopher Blake observed. The same species that laughed at us. How many dead? Wright asked quietly. Dr. Rachel Chang, Earth's chief medical officer, showed the numbers. Current estimates say 43 million dead across 8 species. If we do nothing, projections suggest 500 million deaths within 6 months. The room went silent. Secretary of State Lisa Morgan spoke carefully. We have the ability to help. Dr. Chang's team thinks they can develop a counteragent using the genetic techniques we created last year. But the question is whether we should help. They rejected us, General Patricia Mills reminded them. They called us primitive, violent, insignificant. They laughed when we asked only for a chance to prove ourselves. Wright closed his eyes. He thought about the images from the council chambers 2 years ago. The mockery, the contempt, the casual dismissal of everything humanity had achieved. Part of him wanted to let the council species face the results of their own actions, but then he thought of his daughter, serving as a medical officer on the colony world New Hope. He thought of the billions of humans who had worked so hard to prove their worth, not for revenge, but because they believed humanity could be better than its worst moments. We help them, Wright said finally. Not because they deserve it. Not because we owe them anything. But because we can help. And because saving lives is what civilized people do. Admiral Blake nodded slowly. It will show them who we really are. More than that, Wright replied. It will show us who we are. Within hours, Earth's medical research vessel, Discovery, left for Council space. Dr. Chang and her team of specialists were on board. A small group of warships accompanied them, not as a threat, but as protection in the war zone they were entering. The Council had laughed at humanity 2 years ago. Now, humanity was coming to save them. And that fact would change everything. The Discovery arrived at the Draxian homeworld 3 days after leaving Earth. Council officials waited at the orbital docking station, expecting a small team with research data and plans that would take weeks to implement. Instead, Dr. Rachel Chang brought mobile medical facilities, industrial synthesizers, and a completed counteragent ready for mass production. The Draxian medical director stared in shock as human technicians began setting up production facilities in orbit. How is this possible? We only sent the request 3 days ago. Dr. Chang smiled, though there was no warmth in it. We received the genetic sequence data 2 weeks ago, through other channels. We have been working on this since the plague first appeared. We thought you might eventually ask for help. You have been watching us, the director realized. Despite your withdrawal, you kept monitoring our communications. We left the Council, Chang replied simply. We did not leave the galaxy. We needed to know what was happening near our space. The counteragent was distributed freely to all affected species. Draxians, Vornax, and everyone else infected by the plague received the cure. Earth's medical teams worked alongside Council doctors, teaching them the techniques humanity had developed, sharing research without asking for anything in return. 3 weeks later, the plague was contained. 2 months later, it was gone completely. The death toll was terrible. At 130 million dead, but without human intervention, it would have been billions. The impact on the galactic community was huge. Humanity had not just solved a medical crisis. They had shown capabilities that shocked the Council. The technology they used, the speed of their response, the quality of their research, all of it pointed to a level of advancement that should have been impossible. General Thexvar wrote a detailed report for the Security Committee. In the 2 years since humanity withdrew from Council contact, they have made advances equal to what most species achieve in centuries. They have not just caught up to Council standards. In several important areas, they have passed us. The report listed the evidence. Human ships now used engines more efficient than Council designs. Their sensor technology could see through Council surveillance systems. Their medical research had solved a problem that the Council's best scientists could not handle. Their industrial capacity had grown at a rate that seemed impossible. How did they advance so quickly? Councillor Vrexthal demanded. By not asking our permission, General Thexvar answered bluntly. When we rejected them, we also freed them from council oversight. They were no longer bound by our technology licensing agreements, our research regulations, our restrictions on industrial growth. They took our technology as a starting point and made it better without any limitations. The Yervin delegate studied the data with growing unease. They reverse-engineered everything we sold them. Then they improved it. And they did it, the Tenthari representative added, while we were laughing at them and calling them too primitive to join our alliance. 3 months after the plague ended, Earth sent another message to the Council. This time, it came with an invitation. President Wright's message was broadcast to every Council world. His face appeared on screens across thousands of planets as he spoke calmly. 2 years ago, humanity asked to join the Galactic Council's Mutual Defense Alliance. We were rejected. We were told we were too young, too violent, too insignificant to walk among civilized species. The Council laughed at us. We walked away in silence. In that silence, we built something. Not from anger, but from necessity. We built the future we were told we could not have. We advanced our technology, expanded our colonies, and proved to ourselves that we did not need Council permission to become who we wanted to be. The recent crisis showed that the Council faces challenges. The old alliance is breaking down. The peace you kept for 6,000 years is falling apart. Economic problems are causing hardship across hundreds of worlds. You need new solutions, new ideas, new partners. Humanity is ready to offer those things, but not as beggars asking to join your institutions. Instead, we invite the Council to join us in creating something new, an alliance of equals based on mutual respect and shared interests. A partnership where everyone's voice matters, where technological progress is encouraged, where small species are not dismissed as unimportant. We call it the Coalition for Collaborative Progress. Its founding members are humanity and 7 smaller species who have chosen to join us. We invite all Council species to participate, but only if you are willing to work with us as partners, not as our superiors. The choice is yours. The galaxy is large enough for many alliances, many approaches to civilization. We will not beg for your acceptance, but we will offer friendship to any species willing to meet us as equals. Humanity has built our own table. We invite you to sit at it with us. The message ended. Across Council space, reactions ranged from anger to thoughtful consideration to reluctant respect. In the Council chambers, heated debate erupted. Some species saw the human proposal as an insult to the established order. Others recognized it as an opportunity to rebuild what the war had damaged. Speaker Vrexthal called for order. This is unprecedented. They reject our authority and then invite us to join their organization? The nerve of it. But the Tenthari representative disagreed. Is it nerve, or just confidence? They proved they can survive without us. They proved they can advance without us. They proved they can solve problems we could not. Maybe the question is not whether they should join our alliance, but whether we should join theirs. The debate went on for days. The vote was close, but the result was clear. The Galactic Council formally accepted humanity's invitation to participate in the Coalition for Collaborative Progress, understanding it would be a partnership of equals. Ambassador Alex Carter came out of retirement for one final mission. He stood in a new chamber, not the Council's Grand Hall. This was the Coalition headquarters, a station built by human engineers with input from a dozen species. It sat in neutral space between human and Council territories. The chamber was designed differently from the Council Hall. The seating was circular, with no raised positions. Every delegation had an equal voice, an equal vote. Species great and small sat side by side. Carter addressed the assembly. His voice was strong despite his age. 2 years ago, we were told that humanity was not ready to walk among civilized species. Today, we walk alongside you as partners. Not because we forced our way in, but because we proved our worth through actions, not words. This coalition is not perfect. It will face challenges, disagreements, problems. But it is built on mutual respect, and that makes all the difference. We do not demand that you accept us. We invite you to work with us. The choice has always been yours. Councillor Vrexthal, representing the Kravian Empire at the Coalition's first meeting, stood to speak. His voice carried none of the contempt from 2 years earlier. Ambassador Carter, the Council made a terrible mistake when we dismissed humanity. We judged you by our standards instead of seeing your potential. We laughed when we should have listened. He paused. The humans taught us something important. Strength is not just about technology or history. It is about the courage to stand up after being knocked down. The wisdom to build, instead of destroy. The character to help even those who wronged you. These are the real qualities of civilization. The chamber responded with gestures of respect that crossed species boundaries. In that moment, humanity's place in galactic society became secure. Not through permission granted, but through respect earned. President Wright watched from Earth. Next to him, Dr. Chang observed. They finally understand. Some of them do, Wright replied. Others will take more time. But we have time now. We are no longer waiting for someone else to decide our worth. We showed the galaxy who we are. Secretary of State Lisa Morgan added. The Council laughed when we asked to join them. We walked away in silence and built something better. Sometimes the best response to mockery is not anger, but excellence. Wright nodded. The silence was never about giving up. It was about focusing. While they laughed, we worked. While they dismissed us, we advanced. We did not need their approval to become who we were meant to be. We only needed to believe in ourselves. Across human space, people celebrated. On Earth, on the colonies, on the ships and stations throughout human territory, they rejoiced, not because the Council accepted them, but because they had proven that acceptance from others was never what mattered most. What mattered was accepting themselves, believing in their own potential. Having the courage to build their own future instead of waiting for permission to participate in someone else's vision. The Council had laughed when humanity asked to join them. Humanity had walked away in silence, built something remarkable, and then invited the Council to join them instead. In the end, the silence had been louder than any words could have been.